Danielle, and I am the founder of Discovery Journal, and I create mental health journals for adults, teenagers, and a neurodiverse version as well, which helps identify triggers and causes of anxiety in a very logical, analytical way. And I've been working with Hayley from STEP in Swindon for near on 3 years now. And she's going to just explain a bit about what she does, how she works with the journals, and I will leave the rest up to you.
So I've been working here at STEP Swindon for 15 years now. We deliver therapeutic group work for young people aged between 7 and 18. We deliver primarily in the evenings for 2 hours a week for a 14-week intervention. We are referral based, so the young people would be referred in by a professional person that is working with that young person, and they may have noticed that they need a little bit of help or support within a certain area. We cover any and everything. Some of the commonalities that we see in young people that are struggling to manage difficult situations such as bullying, parental substance misuse, anxiety, emotional and mental well-being, behavioural issues. Maybe they have a diagnosis that they're struggling to deal with. It could be friendship issues. Absolutely anything that you can imagine somebody going through adolescence may struggle with, and it can be unique to the individual. So they would come in and work with us for a 14-week intervention programme, and that is a bespoke programme that we design in response to the trends in referrals that we see. Our groups run for 2 hours in an evening once a week. We will work with the young person to help them to identify what they need help and support with, because although we can get a referral, I think it's really important to hear it from the young person, so they will be an active part in the work that we deliver. We'll ask them what they need help with. We work through their thoughts, feelings and behaviours around those issues, and we offer coping techniques to help them manage that, with the hope that they can reintegrate into society and lead a happy and fulfilling life. And the discovery journals that we use are a really important tool within that process. The first page of the journal is a mood calendar. So you have the month and the date, and you have a list of feelings or emotions that you may have felt throughout that day, which you colour code yourself. You then go across and you colour in each box. It's not something you have to do every day, is it? You can dip in and out of it if you want, and that's the beauty of it as well. I think because that it's not compulsory, you don't have to do it. They feel a little bit more at ease with it. So you create a mood calendar, and you can then see throughout the month, the year, how you've been feeling. So that pattern is in the first page. The next 2 pages are the instructions on how to use the diary. You then go into it. So I think daily it's 2 kind of pages, isn't it?
Yeah.
2 pages of the preemptive work that Danielle's created. There's a box with a variety of feelings, words, and the young person can just circle whichever feeling they felt. It may be one, it may be more. I mean, there is a space for others, so it could be numb, like I've struggled to feel anything at all today. There is then somewhere you can document how many hours sleep you've had, what time you went to bed, what time you woke up. And I think that's really important too, because I don't think young people are always responsible enough to relate their hours of sleep to their mood or their ability to concentrate or focus in school, or to how prickly they may or may not be.
It all contributes at the end of the day, doesn't it? Even when you're an adult.
Yeah. Underneath that, correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, but I think it goes into who have I spoken to today?
So the who have I spoken to, I think, is on the other page. I think it goes down then into like environments, so places
Places
out of 10.
Yeah, and you score them out of 10. So for most young people that would be woke up at home, went to school maybe, come to STEP, had an in-school group. It may be that they do a club, and then you score how that makes you feel. From that's 1 to 10, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, the idea of that is that, it's the simplest thing in the world. But if you start seeing then, okay, well, I was rating school 7 out of 10 and have done for the last 3 weeks, and now it's 3 out of 10, it's that simple connection making, what's happened in that time. And I'm guessing that as well, if they decide to share it with you, that's where you come in and make that observation for them. Yeah. So we've so there's a section on like places and environments, and then it moves on to the interactions between people. So it's who have you interacted with, and the associated feeling. And then you've got your fave box of what would you say out loud, which you could probably do with being a bit bigger, to be honest.
We work with so many young people that have been excluded for swearing at teachers or being rude, and I'm like, this is your moment, this is your box. Document whatever you're feeling in that box. Don't let it come out of your mouth. Write it down so it gets it out in a much more healthy way.
I'm assuming that the kids that you're working with, they do share the journal with you. You don't have to ask them to. Do they use it as a communication device with you?
I don't ask them to share it with me, because I think there's something about them having that as their tool, because I'm always conscious that after the intervention they're going to need a healthy technique to manage themselves thereafter. So it's not something that I ask them to bring in and share with me. I kind of sell it as something confidential to them. However, if there is something they want to share, that's absolutely fine. I always say as well, if you have an appointment, for example, with a mental health service, you might want to take your diary along with you, because quite often the young people I work with will say, I go blank. I go into a meeting and I can't communicate what I want to say because the minute I get in there I go blank. So that's a perfect tool. For example, if they have an appointment with targeted or community mental health services, take the diary in and express yourself from your diary, because that diary creates a pattern of your mood and your thoughts and your feelings. So it's all there. Everything you need is there in that diary, and that can be really useful, even as a communication tool with parents or teachers. Sometimes if you just can't find the words but you've filled in your journal, everything you need is within that journal to use to communicate. If there's something confidential in there, because it's a ring binder, you can actually take the notes pages out and just use the other bits.
Do you find that giving them a physical resource is more beneficial than asking them to do something digitally, because everything's gone digital these days? Mm-hmm. Do you find it better? Do they build trust that you're giving them something that is their own?
I think so, and I think although most young people do have a mobile phone now or access to some kind of digital tool, what they don't always have is a support network, and I think that is a physical tool that almost becomes their support network. They may not have the relationships with the parents that they need to communicate their thoughts and feelings. Their parents may not be emotionally available. They may not live with their parents, so there's lots of different considerations. So I just think that like the physicality of giving that to somebody is almost like that's yours. You can keep hold of that. I always start a session with, tell me how your previous week has been. Tell me about the positives. Tell me about anything negative. So that's a really insightful way of kind of tracking back so that no points are made. And I think the beauty of that is actually the reflection that it enables. Life passes us by so quickly. In the moment it can feel huge, but then something else happens and you forget that moment. But actually to be able to reflect back on that, to document it and then reflect back, it creates an awareness.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I was trying to achieve when I did it. I found that when I was, for lack of a better word, recovering from my own mental illness, that actually having the confidence to communicate in any way, whether that was verbally with someone else or by using a journal, was really beneficial for self-reflection, because I could go back and say, oh, you know, what's changed here, what's different here. That became manageable to me. I was trying to make sense of what was going on rather than letting it kind of dominate me. And even to this day, you know, if I find something difficult to say verbally, I will write someone a letter. I feel more confident in doing that. And so I'm really glad that, you know, the kids that you're working with are doing the same thing, in sharing it and using it like that, because that is what it was designed for. Do you know if they're going to use it, or?
I ask them. Yeah, I ask them. I always say, is this something that you will use? Because I'm not going to give it to you. If you know, you can be perfectly honest, but if it's not for you, then please say. You know, it's a choice. I always give them kind of an informed choice around it, and then it's up to them. It's down to their own decision. And I will check back in after I've given it to them as well and say, have you been using it? How's it been? You know, at that point, I think usually if there is something they'd like to share, they'd bring it up then. One of the things about talking to somebody and sharing your thoughts and feelings and experiences is that it can uncover blind spots. Saying there's some power about saying something out loud or sharing a situation that is it's just it helps you to see things from a perspective that you are unable to see when you keep it inside.
Oh, it's like self-realisation. It's not that, like, we're in conversation now, and it's not like I need you to turn around and go, oh, hold on a second. I can do that on my own just through talking to you. You do have, like, aha moments, and you need to hear yourself say it and have the confidence to believe what you're saying. And then you do kind of, you can make sense of things just through the power of yourself, but
through
you
that
need that
conversation.
That kind of person to bounce off of.
So often young people find it difficult to articulate their feelings and emotions, especially when they're in emotional dysregulation. So the diaries are essential in helping them to identify what they're feeling, how many compounded feelings they're experiencing at once, and what the triggers for those feelings are. It creates an emotional literacy that they probably wouldn't learn without the journals, because it's quite a good visual tool, and the visual links to the feeling, which then promotes the literacy side of things. Through adolescence, I think it is a stage, and we see patterns where young people generally don't like talking about their thoughts and feelings. I think you see them kind of go off into their rooms at that age, and maybe they don't talk about it because they don't understand it, for whatever reason it is, and I'm sure it's different for everybody. They just don't talk. But what happens when they're not talking is that they're bottling it up inside, and that has to come out somewhere. And we're seeing it come out, whether it's an angry outburst, or whether it completely the opposite, whether they go inwards and detach. There's no healthy technique to offload those thoughts and feelings, so it comes out negatively.
Especially, I'm guessing as well, if they don't trust the adults around them, if they don't have a good relationship with authority figures or teachers, their parents, and friendship groups and things like that is so important in teenage years. But I don't think I'd have spoken to my friends about it either.
No, it's the least favourite topic. When I sit down with a group of young people and I say, right, today we're going to talk about feelings and emotions, everybody's favourite topic, and they were like, oh no. And it may be that they have a great relationship with their parents, they just don't talk to them, you know. I think they'd probably choose to speak to their friends more, but I mean, that's great in a sense, but I think the risk there is that actually they don't have the life experience, or maybe the confidence to say, oh, that could be a harmful behaviour, or there's maybe a more healthy way to deal with this. And journaling and communicating is a really healthy tool. And I think quite often young people will mask. you don't always know what is going on, and that's something we deliver here too. Don't judge a book by its cover. You could see a young person that presents as okay, but actually could be quite different on the inside, and that again is where the diary is a great tool, a really healthy outlet to get those inside feelings out.
One thing I did want to ask you, and it's something that when I've been out and about or at events or meetings with the general public, with the journals, I've started to see kind of increases in certain behaviours and certain mental illness symptoms since COVID. Have you seen any change?
Absolutely. I think it's so underestimated as well. As I said earlier, we go into school, so I've definitely seen an increase in school refusal since COVID. Anxieties have gone through the roof around attending school, and I think for that period of time where everybody had to stay at home, these young people who love being in their bedrooms anyway, probably, they can stay at home, but they still have access to the outside world. So I think what happened is that when it comes to reintegrating back into society or education, there's still that element of isolation there, and they found it so difficult, which is just seen such an increase in anxieties.
Yeah, it was one thing that I noticed recently is a real peak in kind of later school years, so you're kind of 14, 15, 16-year-olds, but also a lot of increase in anxiety and mental illness with late 20s and early 30-year-olds as well. And I think the social impact and those, in my opinion, the rites of passages that you have as a teenager to go out and cause trouble and push boundaries and, the first kiss and your first attention and all of these big moments. COVID kind of took that from a lot of kids, and then suddenly they came out the other end and you're an adult now and you're expected to act like an adult now.
I think it affected all developmental stages. I know even COVID babies or young children that should be attending nursery that missed out on nursery are then struggling to get into their reception year. Again, you're moving into adolescence. It affected everybody. Even isolation in more elderly people. I just think it has had devastating outcomes, and I think that they were underestimated and still are. I really think it is a problem, and I think Discovery Journals could even help, adults. It's not just young people. I think they'd be great for adults too.
It's structured very much like the teenage ones that you use. It's just a bit more in-depth, and the terminology is a bit heavier.
Yes.
I also don't feature the social media in the adult ones.
Oh, okay.
Because in my opinion, as adults, we know that it's bad for us. Our problem is with the addiction side of it, the FOMO side of it, rather than the lack of realization. I know that it doesn't do me any good. So I've kind of used that space in the adult journal to look at other things. Obviously, I've brought one in, you've had a look at it. What are your opinions on the autistic version that you've seen?
So we work with lots of neurodiverse young people, and their neurodiversity can sometimes make it really difficult for them to access group work environments. So we would offer a centre visit. At that point, if I'm observing high levels of anxiety, ahead of getting them into group, I will say we use a tool that can really help de-escalate these feelings of anxiety, and I'll sit down and go through the Neurodiverse Discovery Journal with them at that point. And I just think seeing the page that documents the sensory issues is so valuable, because there's something about somebody recognises that I feel that way, and there's somewhere that I can actually record that, which obviously isn't in the other Discovery journals that we use. So I think absolutely perfect. And the young person that I sat down and went through it agreed. You know, I had a phone call with parents just to get some feedback afterwards, and they said they felt really safe and they enjoyed it, and it just made them feel as though, actually, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only person that recognises that I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
And if I have a sensory issue, it's absolutely fine. There's somewhere for me to sit down and work around that, and it always creates awareness for staff as well. I think if a young person has actually got somewhere to say, I really struggle with the feeling of my clothes sometimes, or if there's a certain reaction to food, or if they're noise sensitive, then that's a really good way to communicate that with us.
And when it's there on the page as well, you know, I one thing that I learned with my anxiety is you always tend to feel quite isolated, like you're the only person in the world to have ever felt this way, and you don't feel normal or like you conform with other people. So I guess especially with the sensory page, just having it listed there, just that somebody's thought of it and put it into print and it's there for you, you know, makes you feel less alone in feeling the way that you feel.
Neurodiversity is an umbrella. It's huge, and I don't think you need to have a specific diagnosis for the journal to work.
Yeah.
Quite often, it's a dual diagnosis anyway. So I think it's so dependent upon the individual.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be absolutely fine for the standard Discovery Journal. I'd always give a choice. Which one suits you more? Which one feels right? Which one do you want to go with? Because ultimately, you're the one filling them in. So I don't think you need a specific journal for a specific diagnosis. I think neurodiversity is so huge. You'd find something beneficial within either.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I say to everyone. But it's great to hear it from you, in what you do professionally. Just to answer some of those questions for people, because I mean, I always say, you know, if I have someone in their late 20s, do I have to use the adult one? Because I actually prefer the look of the teenage one. I'm like, no, you can please use whatever you feel is going to be beneficial to you, but it's sometimes difficult to get that message across because we do tend to put ourselves in boxes and try to be a certain person, or, you know, kind of do what we're told, and this one says it's for me, so I'm going to go with this one. But it's nice to hear that, in your opinion, you know, it really wouldn't matter
I don't think so.
to anyone but them.
Absolutely, just whatever feels right.